Okay, so welcome everyone and welcome back. We are here again for the next session in Women in Rabbinic Law and Narrative with Dr. Shana Strauch Schick. To those joining us here on Zoom, as a reminder, I will be sending you an invitation to become a panelist. I highly encourage you to accept the invitation. It will not obligate you to do anything. It will not take any abilities away from you. It will just give you the ability to enter the room, so to speak. You'll be able to share your camera if you wish. It can be nice to have some faces of classmates in the room. You'll also be able to mute and unmute yourself when we have opportunities for participation. Otherwise, feel free to put questions and comments in the chat here. If you're joining us on Facebook, hi, feel free to put your questions and comments in the comment section directly below the video. I'll take a peek now and then and bring those thoughts over here so that you can be part of the conversation too. And without further ado, Dr. Schick, please.
Thank you so much, Noah. And you can all see I posted up the sources again in the chat, and these are more expansive than the ones we had last week. I put English translations in and the rest of the Bavli, which I had left out. So just to review, get us back to what we were talking about. So we were talking about the differing approaches we find with regard to the obligation to procreate in Eretz Yisrael text versus the Bavli. So we saw the Mishnah has two views on the matter. It says first, the obligation, first it just says Adam, a person should not hold back from procreating unless they already have had children. Was it two boys, a boy and a girl? Okay. And then the next Mishnah says, or the next part of the Mishnah says, has two views. The first opinion, which holds only a man is obligated in Peruvu, avalo ha'isha, not a woman. And then the dissenting view of Rabbi Yochanan ben Baroka, who says al shneim hu omer v'recha tamalakim v'relehem Peruvu, says it on both of them. When we looked in the Tosefta, we saw that the Tosefta unequivocally sides the view of Rabbi Yochanan ben Baroka. It says, the same laws for each person. A man cannot live without a wife. A woman can't live without a man, her husband. A man is not allowed to drink a sterilizing potion. A woman can't drink a sterilizing potion. A man cannot marry a person who is unable to conceive, and a man can, and a woman, nor can a woman. Okay. And then there was another Mishnah, which I left out, which also said that a woman also should get remarried after, she leaves after a childless marriage ends, but she too should get remarried and try to have children with her new husband. And then when we went to the Yerushalmi, we saw that the law as codified in the Yerushalmi amongst the Amoraim of the land of Israel, also sided the view of Rabbi Yochanan Beroka. And this sugya, this Yerushalmi passage, just comprised of halachic statements, either saying the law follows Rabbi Yochanan ben Beroka, we see here in B and D, or the seemingly related law in Tovat Nasei Hadinima. If a woman makes claim to get divorced, the law is with her. And this, of course, is in the case of a childless marriage. She too has the right to get divorced. It doesn't make, and then in E it says, well, maybe they're not connected, but it doesn't necessarily say that. All it says is, I never heard Rav Chanina say the law is like Rabbi Yochanan Beroka. I just heard him say, if she wants to, the law is with her if she wants to get divorced to get remarried. Now it doesn't mean he didn't hold that. He might be saying, look, I want to be honest. If you're quoting him, quote him correctly. Not that he doesn't agree with that, or is it saying something deeper? Like, no, he didn't say that. He didn't think that. He just thinks women could get divorced. So that's not clear. Maybe the Bavli is picking up on that ambiguity. So we saw, this was the end of Israel position of Eretz Yisrael. So okay, we reviewed that enough. The Mishnah has two opinions. The Tosefta and Yerushalmi both side with the view of Rabbi Yochanan ben Beroka. We then went to the Bavli discussion, which begins like the Yerushalmi. The Yerushalmi also begins with a discussion of explaining the opinion of the first view of the Mishnah. Why does that have to explain the first Mishnah, the first opinion? Well, because the Mishnah explains the position of Rabbi Yochanan ben Beroka. He brings a biblical verse. He says, be fruitful, multiply was written in the plural. So the Mishnah already provides a biblical support for Rabbi Yochanan ben Beroka, but the Mishnah did not provide a support for why the first opinion holds only men are obligated, not women. Therefore, it's not surprising that both the Yerushalmi and the Bavli begin by providing that biblical support. And they have the same one. So the Yerushalmi we saw says, because, it says, you must be fruitful, multiply, and conquer the world. And man conquer, not women. And the Bavli starts with that same homily. Then we saw the Bavli also contains these other ones, which, they may just be, at first glance or, on a surface level, on a stylistic level, it's just because it just brings a bunch of traditions attributed to Rabbi Lai, Mishum, Rabbi Lazar, Rabbi Shimon. Rabbi Lai, in the name of Rabbi Lazar, the son of Rabbi Shimon. So that is just like the stylistic surface connection between them. Then we saw at this, that the content of the homily is more intrinsically related to the substance of the sugya. But it began with this homilies, first justifying the first view of the opinion that obligates only men, and then these other homilies, seemingly unrelated, about lying to maintain peace. You could change things to make peace. The first one about Yosef and his brothers, and the next one about Abraham and Sarah, and lying for the sake that God lied to Abraham to maintain the marital harmony of Abraham and Sarah. Okay, and then the next part of the Gemara starts talking about, so who does the law follow? And not just who the law followed, but who did the prominent second generation Eretz Yisrael Amora Rabbi Yochanan follow? Did he? It seems like he might have followed Rabbi Yochanan ben Beroka, as these anecdotes seem to prove. One is that his students said he actually held that way. Rabbi Abahu or Rabbi Chia bar Abba said that Rabbi Yochanan held like Rabbi Yochanan ben Beroka. And then we see these other Amoraim, Rabbi Ami and Rabbi Asi, turning their heads away in dissent. Okay, and then another anecdote in E where there was an Uvdavav committed to Rabbi Yochanan, that there was an incident that happened in the synagogue in Caesarea, meaning where a woman who wants to end a childless marriage. Rabbi Yochanan says, let her get divorced, which again seems to sound like he holds women are obligated, because as the Gemara, as the anonymous voice here explains, if you would have thought she's not obligated, why would she get her ketubah? Why would he let her end her marriage? Women don't have any legal claim to initiate a divorce. It must be because she has an obligation to procreate, and hence that halachic obligations would allow her to initiate a divorce in this case. Then the Gemara says, no. She has another claim. That's why we're letting her initiate divorce, but it's not because women are obligated. And then we see these two anecdotes involving Reb Ami, who we just saw before, the one who didn't agree that Rabbi Yochanan held like Rabbi Yochanan ben Beroka, and Reb Nachman, a woman. Each comes before that. Two separate cases are reported where a woman comes before them wanting a divorce. They each say, no, you're not obligated. And then she gives him these two women each give them nice Jewish guilt. Say, well, who's going to take care of me when I'm an old lady and I'm going to die and I'm going to have to dig my own grave? So he says, fine. In this case, we'll let you get divorced. But, and again, the immediate context is, see, you can hold, she can initiate a divorce and still not hold women are obligated. But we also saw how these also function to critique the position, critique the Babylonian position. And what is the means that it uses to critique the Babylonian position? It essentially, Hafina, and essentially uses the language of the Yerushalmi. Just going back to this, just because we already did this last week, meaning, their rulings, Kihavadai Hafina, really says the same thing, just in Aramaic of what the Yerushalmi says. If a woman wants to get divorced, the law is with her. So we see that what in the Yerushalmi appears as just a halachic rule, a halachic statement, a Pesach din, or has in a Bavli is embedded within a narrative. I mean, it's this narrative. And notice these are Aramaic narratives, meaning it's not an attributed statement of a rabbi telling us this. These are, we'd call, it's the work of the anonymous editors, the Stama'im, the redactors of the Bavli, telling over the stories. So we see how the Eretz Yisrael Pesach, the Eretz Yisrael rule has been embedded within a narrative. But as opposed to your Yerushalmi, where this is the general rule, in the Bavli, it's an exception, saying, okay, in this case, we'll apply this. So we see how the Bavli is aware of the Eretz Yisrael position, and maybe it's, and it has a narrative which is, it critiques the Babylonian position. And just notice who's critiquing it. It's a woman. And that's actually, it's not unusual in the Bavli that, critiques are often put in the mouths of what we call like non-rabbinic others. And of course, who's writing this? I mean, this is the Bavli, this work of rabbinical literature. So, whether it's reflecting a real anecdote that actually occurred, this is being authored by Chazal, by rabbis. And, they are putting, you see, it's very reflexive, reflecting on the Babylonian position and showing some of the problems that could arise with such a position. But the problems are being placed in the mouth of a woman. And this woman is saying, well, who's going to take care of me when I'm older? So again, this is a strategy that is employed elsewhere in the Bavli, of critiquing and from others. And we also see it's a way of contending with the Eretz Yisrael approach, applying it, but within the framework of still the Bavli position, meaning the Bavli position being women are not obligated. Maybe we can make room for the Eretz Yisrael one, in limited cases. And we recognize potential problems with our approach. The potential problems are that women could be left alone in their old age. We don't give them an out from childless marriage. So, there are a lot of functions. The immediate purpose of F and G of these two narratives is to show, look, you can both allow women to initiate a divorce and hold that women are not obligated in Rabu, like the Bavli wants to say is Rabbi Yochanan's position. Hence, that's why he allowed the woman in Caesarea to initiate a divorce. But if you look beneath it, seeing these parallels, you also see what was the way to reflect on the Babylonian position, maybe find potential problems with it, and incorporate the Eretz Yisrael position, but within the context of the Bavli. And then I'll just go back up, the story of Yehudi, a very interesting story. And that's where, that's where we had left. And we didn't really give it, I'd like to give it a little more time than what we had, but and analyze it a little more because there's more to say. So we saw this story of Yehudit, who has these very terrible pregnancies, and as you say, when you start the story, I think our sympathies lie with her largely. She has these agonizing pregnancies, and she doesn't want to have any more children. And it's clear that, her husband and she are not on the same page on this matter. So what does she do? She, Shana mana. She changes her, this is usually understood to mean she changes her clothing, but as I said, I saw a very interesting read that Shana mana, she changed her gender, meaning she dressed like a man. Or maybe it's even, another read I saw, she acted more masculine in asking the question, imposing the question as a halachic one and not, an emotional one, meaning she is Sar Leda. But what's her way out of it? By becoming more masculine and asking a halachic question. We're not coming at it from, she has these horrible pregnancies, she can't bear it anymore. But no, she's Shana Mana. She changed herself to ask it in a more, quote, masculine way. So that's, an interesting read. It's not my own. I think in Baraveh, I'll get back to that, who suggests that. But we also saw how it very beautifully ties into the language at the beginning of the sugya, of the passage, where she's Shana Mana, and we saw a person can change their words to maintain peace, and more relatedly, the drasha of the house of Rabbi Yishmael, the school of Rabbi Yishmael, where we said that, how great is peace? And in this case, it's talking about marital peace. God changed words to maintain marital peace in the case of Abraham and Sarah. So she changes herself, whatever that means. So she disguises herself. He doesn't know it's her. She comes before Rabbi Chia and Amra, and she says to him, there's a woman obligated in Piria and Vivia. And he said, no, she is not. And so then what does she do? I'm going to get the sources, because I now have given you the English sources. And so Azashte Sema Dekarda, she goes and she drinks a sterilizing potion and the soap, Egalta Milta. In the end, the matter was revealed to Marla, and he said to her, if only you had, given me one more stomach full, like another womb, maybe more children. And then it ends with this anonymous word, Damar Mar, the master said, okay, so Yehud and Chizkiah were twins, i.e., it was their children, and they also had twin daughters, Pazi Vitavi. Okay, so a lot of weird things about this story. Again, what's the immediate context? So what does the story prove? Our whole sugya is really devoted to proving that the law is not like Rabbi Yochanan ben Piroka, that the law follows the first opinion, women aren't obligated. And this proves that. So we have all these, Reb Nachman, Reb Ami, all showing, no, women are not obligated, so we can grant a divorce, even if they're not obligated. And here, she's not obligated. So we see a story where she's told she's not obligated there. Okay, so that's the immediate context of this story. But of course, if we go back to our reads of it, we see Yehudi or her actions might also be drawing attention to another issue that could arise when we're not obligated in procreations. So I think we cannot ignore the fact that this Mishnah is really the mirror image of the Tosefta. If you recall, and so it's right here, the Tosefta had said, we saw the Tosefta equated men and women. So men, are not allowed to not get married. Women are not allowed to not get married. A man is not allowed to drink a sterilizing potion, so he will not conceive. And Isha Rasha, and nor can a woman. So the two things are very much linked. If you're obligated in Pru-Revu, you cannot drink a sterilizing potion. And that's the rule. We see, again, it's very consistent. The Eretz Yisrael text, we really have these brief halachic statements. The law follows this is the law of the law. So, it's formulated in the way Eretz Yisrael things are. And again, we have in the Bavli, this very much seems to draw from this halacha in many ways, because we have the Sama de Akarta, and that's the Aramaic of Lishtot Ikarin. It's the same root, Akarta, to make someone an Akarat, to make someone barren. And it's drawing that same association. The ability or the permissibility or prohibition against whether one can drink a sterilizing potion, the Tosefta shows us is linked to whether they have an obligation for revu. So in our story, Yehudi's act of drinking it is directly a result of her being told that she is not allowed to, that she's not obligated in revu. So we see it's a direct connection, much like the one that Tosefta made. It's just a mirror. It's the reverse of it. And There's definitely different ways this can be read. However, and I think one possible way to read it is that we saw in, F and G, the repercussions for women if they're not obligated in Peruvu. And this story, on the one hand might say, oh, look, there's some benefits for women if they're not obligated in Peruvu, if they're not obligated. They have reproductive freedom. And maybe that's the point of it. But there's also possible, the fact that, as I pointed out, it's unclear who our sympathies are meant to lie with. The beginning, we feel kind of bad, I think we feel bad for Yehudis. How about that's our Leda? But in the end, we feel, Chia's anguish. If only you had given me another womb. And he gets the last word. And, she's deceiving him. So is she doing something wrong? And it seems like him getting the last word, he's, we feel bad for him that his wife deceived him and that he's not going to have any more children. And perhaps what the story is coming to say is, when women aren't obligated in Peruvu, it can harm not just women, but even men. Because nothing going to stop their wives from sterilizing themselves if they don't have any more children. It's a possible read. And it is unclear. Now, it's interesting, this kind of added line, the master said, Yehuda and Chizkiah were twin brothers, and Pazi and Tavi were twin sisters. These were their children. Now, it's interesting. So what does that mean? It means that Yehudit and Rebbe Chia already had 4 children, 2 boys and 2 girls. Now, so on one hand, maybe it's saying, Rebbe Chia, what's your problem? You already got 4 kids, that should be good enough. Maybe. It's also possible that it is her tailing the reproductive freedom. So that's a grant to women, meaning like she drank it, but don't worry. They already had 2 boys and 2 girls. And if you recall, it's not 2 boys and 2 girls, Beit Shammai says, go back to the beginning. How did someone get their Torah? Beit Shammai says, Shnei Zecharim, 2 boys. Beit Hillel says, a boy and a girl. So they already did, even better than what the Mishnah acquired. They got 2 boys and 2 girls. So he already got his Torah. He already got his, get out of jail free card, get out of having a kid's card. So, it's possible that line is meant to say, okay, it's not total reproductive freedom. He was still able to, he did still already get his Torah, his exemption from having any more children because he had 2 boys and 2 girls. He fulfilled all opinions, Beit Shammai and Beit Hillel. So, he is good. Maybe, or again, maybe it's saying, Rebbe Chia, it's okay. You already have all these children. So as you see, there's a lot of layers of meaning. It's very interesting, and this is not the sources from last week, but there's actually, oh yes, Naomi, you have a question.
I do. So, right, they had 2 boys and 2 girls. So she obviously, in her particular family situation, had no obligation, whether women generally have an obligation or not. In her particular situation, she didn't.
Well, in the Bavli, women don't.
Right, but what I'm wondering is when she went and asked, is it possible that, she's giving her complete situation? Look, I have 2 boys and I have 2 girls, and do I have permission? Am I obligated? And the answer is, well, no, you're not obligated. But maybe not. It wasn't a general statement about all women. Maybe it was a statement about her in particular. Is it possible?
Right. It does look like, and I'll even put it separate. It kind of looks like this is an aggadic, something that was added on, because in the words of her question, she doesn't say that. All she is presented as saying is a woman commanded to procreate. So she asks about all women, and she disguises herself. So, her question that maybe she said more, but if we're just taking the words at face value, all she asked was, are women obligated in procreation? Now, maybe, I should say, like this line here, Judah and Chizkiah were twin speeches when developed in the 9 months. That's not in all the text witnesses. I'm even seeing. So, I mean, this line, is it like organic to the story? Trying to see, where's this footnote going to? Or, is it added later? Hard to know, but it's not how she articulates a question as reported in the Bavli, purely in terms of are women are obligated to prove revu or not. And that is what anchors it, within the immediate context of the sugya we are trying to show. The law does not follow Rabbi Yochanan ben Beroka. That's the immediate, a context here. So if she were asking it, I think it would have phrased it that way, but that's not how her question is phrased. So I think that's what leaves like this last line here open for all those different interpretations. And also, I think when we do see, seeing just a parallel to Tosefta and how this really looks like, it's not just a Tosefta, it's seeing the whole sugya and how this whole sugya, I believe let's look like it's a drawing from these Eretz Yisrael, what we call, piskei halacha, like halachic rules, like that's all we're seeing as we see it. The Mishnah and the Tosefta, the Shalmi, everything's articulated in rules, and we see these rules embedded within narratives. And that just fits with the rest of the sugya as well, that the fact that this story too really fits with the Tosefta. I think that also argues for the connection between one's obligation or lack thereof is intrinsically connected to whether they can drink the sterilizing potion. Yes, is a question?
Yes. If she had 2 boys and 2 girls, then what was the question? There was no question because she had already fulfilled both the obligation according to the Yerushalmi and
Right.
the Bavli.
Right. I mean, and when this is a codified later in halacha, that stipulation is put in. That's just, it's not how she frames her a question. And is this like a later addition? As I pointed out here in this footnote, references to them being twins are only found in later anonymous strata of the Bavli. So it's hard to know if this is something that was added later to this story. But either way, it doesn't figure in to the question she asks. She disguises herself. He doesn't know it's her. And in the way her question is reported, it's the question, her asking whether she can drink, it is entirely based on, is she commanded in Pru'Revu or not? It's not articulated as being dependent on whether she had children previously. So are women obligated in Pru'Revu? No, okay. And then she goes and drinks it. Now,
It's like she's making a statement for all women.
I mean, she's asking for women. Itita mifkada apiria virivia. Is a woman obligated in procreation? And again, in the immediate context of the sugya, it just further supports the fact that women aren't obligated. Like, look, here's this anecdote where that happened. But reading it within all these stories together, it also could, be giving another, possible critique or challenge that could arise from women's lack of obligation. But look, there are many ways to read it. It's just her question is only articulated in terms of are women obligated in Pru'Revu or not. And she does not ask, oh, and I already have children, so I'm good. That's, it's a later, it's not part of their dialogue within, as it's reported in the Bavli, that is a later, note. It's like, no, editor's note here, they had these other children. Now there is actually another Yehudit Rabbi Chia's story. It's interesting because there's other accounts in the Bavli of Rabbi Chia and his wife, and in those accounts she has no name, and in those she's a bit of she's difficult. But then there's two Rabbi Chia and Yehudit stories, and this is a similar one. This is in Bavli Kiddushin, and this is an anecdote which is embedded in a halachic discussion. And that halachic discussion is it's about Kiddushin, betrothal. And there's the way a man is Mekadesh woman, Jewish weddings, there are two parts to them. There's Kiddushin and Nisuin. I know we make a big deal out of the chuppah when he gives her the ring. That's actually Kiddushin. It's not like full marriage yet. The full marriage happens in the Cheder Yichud, when the couple is secluded in a room. So what's happening under the canopy that we do when he gives her the ring? That's doing a Kiddushin. And Kiddushin can be accomplished 3 ways. Be done with giving her money or something worth money, or he writes her a document, or they have sex. Okay, so we do the Kiddushay Akesef. We perform the betrothals through something worth money, and we use a ring. And the condition of using a Kiddushay Kesef, using money or something worth money, it has to have a minimal value. It has to be worth at least a pruta. So this sugya in Kiddushin deals with, let's say, things which like the value of fluctuates. One day it's worth something, it's worth more now, and you're not sure what it was worth the day that the Kiddushin, the betrothal, was done. So within that story, says right here, it brings this, anecdote to illustrate a case of someone who possibly contracted a Kiddushin that wasn't worth money. Okay, so it says, here we go. So Lav Hainu Yehudi Debitu de Rabbi Chia. This is similar to a case of Yehudit, the wife of Rabbi Chia, and Havalet Sar Leda. You have the same intro. She had difficult, painful, agonizing a childbirth. So Amrale, so she said to him, Amrali Aim, my mother told me, Kibel Bech Avuch Kiddushay Ki Zutart, that when you were young, my mother said this to me. My mother said to you, Yehudi. My mother said, Yehudit, when you, Yehudit, were young, your father, Kibel, accepted a Kiddushin for you that was, So Amarla, so meaning I already got married. Shoot, we can't stay married anymore because my mother had accepted a Kiddushin, my father accepted a Kiddushin for me. Okay. So Amarla, Rabbi Chia says to her, nice try, Yehudi. It's not in your mother's power to prohibit you to me. So, we don't believe your mother. Good news, we can stay married. Yay. You see Yehudi going, yay. So what is, in the context of it, it was a case where right before this, a case came before the 3rd generation Babylonian Talmud Rav Chisda, where a woman claimed that her son had given a woman, money for an object for a Kiddushin that was that did meet the minimal amount, and so therefore this woman was married to her son. And Rav Chisda said to her, "No, we don't go by you. You don't have the power to make this woman usher. And this woman is not married to your son, and she's free to marry another man. And we don't believe you, mother of this man, that on the day that your son gave her this object, it was worth a pruta. So he says to this woman, it's not in your power to prohibit this woman to other men. She is free to marry someone else. So Rav Chisda, so in there, it's to help this woman, it's saying that the boy's mother doesn't have the power to prohibit this woman to other man. And now we have this, so is the reflection, Alana has a question, is this a reflection on a woman or on the mother-in-law? Meaning it's on the mother-in-law, meaning he's protecting the woman against the mother-in-law. The mother-in-law is saying, so let's say on Monday, Abraham gave Sarah a flower, let's say. And today it's not worth a pruta. So we do not say Sarah is married to Abraham, and Sarah doesn't, meaning if a woman's married to a man, she needs a get, all the things that go along with it. Cause a guna prom, everything that goes along with it. And she wants to marry Shema. So Avram's mother says, no, when my Avrami gave Sarah this flower, it was worth a pruta. Today, maybe it's not worth a pruta, but it was worth a pruta when he gave it to her. And now Sarah is married to my son. So having this woman be married to him, that would really mess her up. No, she needs a get, and she can't marry anyone else. So all the things that go along with that. So Rav Chisda is saying it's not in the mother-in-law's power to prohibit this woman. So he is, he's protecting the woman to say she can marry who she wishes. Now, the anecdote concerning Rabbi Huda and Rabbi Chia, it's related in that it's also a case where it's not in a mother's power to prohibit a woman to her second husband. However, again, it's kind of the inverse of it, because here Yehudi wants to extricate herself from her marriage. Whereas in the first story, the woman doesn't want to marry Avram. She wants to marry this other guy. Yeah, sorry, there's a question.
I was just wondering, whose power is it in to make this woman not able to marry another man?
So it's no one's. I mean, this is talking about objects with a price fluctuation. So in these cases, we're not going to take someone's word and say, today it's not worth a pruta. It's something whose price, the value of it changes. So we're not going to take someone's, and say it was worth a pruta. Now this woman needs a get, and she'll be an aguna if she can't get one, and she can't marry someone else. So in this case, in the
first case, it's not a matter of money. It's not a matter of value. In the first case, where it's Yehudi who's married to Rabbi Rafia, it's not a matter of money. It's a matter of her word.
Right. So it's interesting that it's the inverse of that case. The first case is the money case. And that's like, we want to protect the woman. And then this case comes right after. It's interesting because you're right. It's kind of the opposite. This case, it's not about money, and she wants to get out of the marriage. And Rav Chia is using the same logic that Rav Chisda had employed. And in Rav Chisda's case, it was to help the woman and to do what she wanted. But here, it's the opposite. So it's possible, these stories are two kind of different attempts of Yehudi to, kind of solve her bad pregnancy problem. They may also be variations of the same story, and the differences in there's similarities between them. Both of them, we don't know if Yehudi is making up the story about her mother, but, maybe she is, and the fact that saying she has Sar Leda, she wants to stop having children. So in this case, it's like, okay, well, what can I do to get out of it? My father accepted a Kiddusha from me when I was a kid. Sorry, we don't believe your mother on that one. So both of these, it looks like she's employing a kind of a ruse to get out of having children. They both have the same beginning. And the differences between the stories have they each correspond to the surrounding sugya around them. So it's possible that, each was made to conform to their setting, or they're placed in their settings because they fit it. So it's definitely hard to know. But I would say that in our story, her decision to, the way she tries to get in Kiddushin, she tries to get out of having more children by, maybe saying their marriage is invalid. Whereas in our sugya, it is a direct response to not being obligated in procreation. And again, how it relates to the beginning of the sugya. So Shana Mana, is she, where did I go? So she's also being Shina. She is changing something. Now, we saw in the beginning, it's mutar l'shnot b'davar hashalom. You can change to maintain peace. So is that what she does? Is she changing herself to maintain peace, meaning her own peace of mind? She has sar leda. Or, so is she, an actualization of this homily, that you can lie to maintain peace? And so that's what she does, her own peace of mind. Or is she even a perversion of it? You can lie to maintain marital harmony, but she changes and she causes marital discord. Or maybe or maybe it was marital harmony because she couldn't take having children anymore, and that was bad for their marriage. So, again, there's a lot of layers of meaning that we see. Is possible reading this sugya. Is any more questions on this? Because then there's one last anecdote in the Bavli. Okay, I can't see if any questions. Okay, so let's go on to the last story. Anything else I want to add here? Okay. Okay. So our last story. Get share it from the sources because we have English here. What is it? Sorry. Here we go. Okay. I'm sharing the sources, right? Yes. Okay. So last part of the sugya. It asks again, below mifkadeh, are women really not commanded? Still going back to that. Meaning, because we prove women are not commanded in these three, in FG, and that should be H. We keep showing, women are not commanded. So even in stories where it looked like they were, there's other reasons, or she drank the sterilizing potion because she was told women are not commanded. But is that really true? V'ha amar Acha barav Katina amar Rav Yitzchak. So Rav Acha, son of Rav Katina, said in the name of Rav Yitzchak, Masa bishachad shechatziyah shivcha v'chatziyah bat chorim. So there's an incident involving a woman who's half enslaved, half free. How is that possible? It's a woman who's owned by two different people. She works for one person on Monday, the other person Tuesday, and so forth. But one of them masters frees her. So there was an incident. This woman, is half free, and says Rabbi Yitzchak, Kafu, et Rabbah, v'asa bat chorin. And says Rabbi Acha bar Katina, in the name of Rabbi Yitzchak, and we forced the master, or they forced the master to set her free. So what's the question here? Meaning, so only one master freed her, not the other master. And we said, okay, so other master, you have to free her. So how does this challenge, are women really not commanded? Because what's the only reason you would free her? You would free her so that she can now get married and fulfill her obligation of Pru Review. Because as long as she's in a slave, she can't get married. She can't do kiddushin. So if we're saying the master must free her, it must be because women have an obligation in procreation. So it says, Reb Nachman bar Yitzchak, who we actually met in the beginning of the sugya. So it's, we're, seeing return to the beginning of the sugya also. Reb Nachman bar Yitzchak, he gave an alternative biblical verse as a proof for how we know only men are obligated, not women. So now he gives a resolution to this. So if women, why would they have freed her if women are not obligated? So answers Reb Nachman, bar Yitzchak, they were taking liberties with her. Meaning, no, if she's a slave, she really can be, put it bluntly, like sexually abused. So we want to, that's why we free her. So you would have thought the only reason to grant her full freedom would be if she had an obligation in procreation. And the answer is no. There's other reasons to free her that have nothing to do with that. And therefore we can maintain the position that women are not obligated. Now, once again, as in all our other stories, this story parallels a tradition from Eretz Yisrael, and specifically a Mishnah in a Gittin, which discusses a case of a man who is half enslaved. And this Mishnah makes a connection between his forced freedom and obligation to procreate very clear. So it says here, let me put on the same page so we can have the Hebrew and the translation together. Misha chatzio eved v'chatzio ben chorin, but one who is half a slave and half free. And now, it explains what that means, meaning oved rabbo yom echad, v'atzmo yom echad. So he's half free and half slave. So one day he works for his master, the next day he works for himself. That is Divrei Beis Hillel. So Beis Hillel says, we can maintain this arrangement. Okay, if he had two owners and one owner freed him, okay, so one day he's a slave, the next day he's free, and that can work. Amrullah Beit Shammai, so says in Beit Shammai, Tikantam et Rabbo, below et atzmo lo tikantem. So you've helped the master, but you haven't helped him. Lisa shivcha yevshar. He can't marry a slave woman, shekivar chatzo ben chorim, because half of him is free, and a free, Israelite man, a free Jewish man is not allowed to marry a slave. But he also can't marry a Jewish woman, a free Jewish woman, shekivar chatzo eved, because half of him is also a slave, and a Jewish woman is not allowed to marry a slave, meaning kiddushin just will not work. And yibatel, so if you say, okay, just let him not have children, he won't do prove, or just he won't get married. But the world was only created to populate it. Shnamar now brings a verse from Yeshayahu, the world was not created for nothing. It was created to inhabit it. Ella mipnei tikun ha'olam kofinat rabo ba'oso oto ben choron. So, in order to tikun olam, to help the world, what do? We compel his master to free him. And he writes a document for half the price. And the Chazar Beit Shammai, and Beit Hillel says, you know what, Beit Shammai, you're right. And it's one of the many times, by the way, that Beit Hillel changes their mind to accord with Beit Shammai. And in fact, there's a Gemara which says that's one of the reasons that the halacha vows Beit Hillel, because they had the ability to change their mind and be flexible. And that's the key to continuity. Anyways, so what does that have to do with our Gemara? If you just look here, you see our anecdote, once again, strongly parallels this Eretz Yisrael rule. What does our Mishnah say? That Rabbi Yitzchak says, must be shechat, shechetzia, shepchat, chetzia, ben chorim, b'chorim, v'kapot rabal asad bat chorim. And that really parallels this language. So there was an incident of a woman who was half slave, half free. They compelled her master to free her. Same exact language in this Mishnah, just talking about a male. Again, one who is half slave and half free. We compel his master and make him free. And again, what appears in the Mishnah and Eretz Yisrael text as halacha, here this is a ma'aseh. It is presented as an incident. Now, as in the earlier anecdotes, this final story likewise affirms the view that the law follows the first opinion of the Mishnah, that women are exempt. And how does it do that? It reinterprets a case which seemingly had indicated otherwise, just like in all the cases. Now, what's very cool is, I have to point this out, make sure we see this, that when we look, so first of all, we see how really the entire Bavli Sugya, and I broke it up here in this chart, is comprised of, or contains parallels in Eretz Yisrael sources. So we saw the first part strongly, it powers the Yerushalmi, the Adrasha, the homily about, it starts with the same homily, how we, justifying the opinion of the first view of the Mishnah. And then these rulings of the Mishnah, halacha ki Rabbi Yochanan ben Beroka, the law follows Rabbi Yochanan ben Beroka. You see that's green. It's found also verbatim in the Bavli. And likewise, the halacha and the Yerushalmi, if she claims to get divorced, the law is with her. We likewise saw those in the Bavli, just in anecdotes where it said Yotzi v'yitain ketuva, or kiha vadai kafina. We let her leave marriage. She gets her ketuva, or we definitely force the marriage. And we also see a few of the same rabbis who appear. We have Rabbi Abahu, the Yerushalmi, Rabbi Abahu in the Bavli. In the next part of the Gemara, in the story of Yehudit, we saw how her action, she's not being approved, therefore she drank Sama de Akarta. We saw that parallels the Tosefta, where again, those two things, the obligation is directly linked to whether or not one can drink the Shtot Ikarin. And we saw that this last anecdote in the Bavli about the slave woman, the half slave woman, who master is forced to free her, likewise parallels the Mishnah in Gittin. So that's one thing. What's also interesting, one of my favorite things to talk about, is that when we look at this sugya in the Bavli, we see not only how much it parallels the Eretz Yisrael material, but we also can see it's actually been arranged in a chiastic structure. What's a chiastic structure? What you call, it's like A, B, C, B, A, where things parallel each other and then you get to the midpoint. So where do we see it? So we have the first, and this is chiastic structures are, it's a literary structure. It's a literary phenomena that is found in Tanakh a lot. Bible scholars pointed out in various biblical stories and texts. So so what's the chiastic structure here? So the beginning here, it's some are better than others. A1 here cites Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak, and he also appears in the end of the sugya, Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak, and both of them, resolving or answer, responding to a question. The last case, he responds to, why did we free this woman if women aren't obligated in Pru Revu? And the first part, he offers a biblical verse as how we know that women are not obligated in procreation. Okay. The next is B here. What I labeled here B, about homilies devoted to altering the truth to maintain peace. Of course, likewise parallels then H, the story of Yehudit, where she changes something as well. That same language appears in both places as well. The next we have that I call C and F and G, those actually, what's so about them, they, C and F and G, parallel or contain lines from the Yerushalmi, can contain the Yerushalmi's lines much more clearly. I mean, Halach Rabbi Yochanan ben Beroka and C, that is directly parallels that line. And F and G, Kiha Vadai Kafina, we definitely compel, parallels Hatovat Linase Hadin Ima. Now, the point of a chiastic structure, I mean, much of it, other than just, having a nice literary, for literary embellishments, the point is also to highlight what appears in the center. And what appears in the center, what's the midpoint? It is section D and E. What do sections D and E say? They point out Rabbi Yochanan doesn't hold that women are obligated in Peru. Rabbi Yochanan does not follow the opinion of Rabbi Yochanan ben Beroka. D, says that straight out, that Rabbi Bahu thought maybe he did, and then Rabbi Ami and Asi turned their faces and said, no, you're wrong, he never said that. And then E, we have a story again where it looks like maybe he thought women are obligated because he granted a woman a divorce, and then again the Gemara says, no, it was another reason. Don't think that Rabbi Yochanan don't think that Rabbi Yochanan followed the opinion of Rabbi Yochanan ben Beroka. So the central section, therefore, that's the midpoint, and that's the section that affirms that Rabbi Yochanan, again, the very prominent Eretz Yisrael Amora, did not maintain the position of Rabbi Yochanan ben Beroka, and that women are not obligated in procreation, despite the traditions, the Eretz Yisrael traditions, which indicated otherwise. And looking at, the similarities between the Bavli and the Eretz Yisrael traditions, it does, and it looks like that the Eretz Yisrael material likely served as sources for the Bavli. Of course, we know that there are these very noticeable differences as well. As we've said, that all the traditions from Eretz Yisrael, Yerushalmi to Seventh and Mishnah, are stated as halachic rules. They're issued as halachic statements. They're devoid of any kind of text. Whereas in the Bavli, and actually beginning really with the central section of the chiastic structure, so it's a midpoint, not just in terms of theme, but also just in terms of this dial. From D on, everything we see are narratives. And so again, the Yerushalmi and Bavli both have the ruling that women can initiate a divorce, but in the Yerushalmi, it's a general rule, whereas in the Bavli, it appears as a decisions in actual cases that were brought before Rabbi Yochanan, Rabbi Ami, and Rev Nachman. And again, the Tosefta's rule that, she cannot drink a kos ikarim, is the action taken by Yehudit. And the law of, the rule that appears in the Mishnah in Gittin is described as the details of the case that came before Rabbi Acha Bar Katina and the decision he issued. So what does all this do in the minute we have left? Now, as I said, narratives in general, but the Bavli in particular, often, do serve this function of showing how, we have the rules, but then we see how people lived with the rules and people interacted with the rules. And we see how almost all these narratives, other than, again, their immediate concept of showing you can hold, women are obligated and still, do various things. But all of these show potential conflicts that people might have with the rule as formulated or the rule as maintained in the Bavli. So we saw, again, sections F and G point to the problem that can result for women when they're not obligated, and they'll have no one to care for them in their old age. And again, the Eretz Yisrael position is then employed as the solution to these specific cases and not as a general rule. Okay. And then we saw the conflict brought by Yehudit in her attempt to avoid another agonizing pregnancy. So, and again, her lack of obligation, that is seen as the impetus for her drinking the sterilizing potion. And, immediate context, proof women aren't obligated, but the smite going with are these anecdotes, showing a conflict. This can show the conflict that women's lack of obligation could even cause for men, or it can show, look, it has a conflict, but it can have maybe benefits for women as well. So, as scholars say, these narratives provide what's called a thick description of life. And it shows, demonstrates how people interacted with the law. And it also provides a platform for the more inclusive Eretz Yisrael position in ways, and allows the Bavli to incorporate them, but still within the context of, its own halachic rule. So I thought this was a nice kind of end to all the things we had done in the previous weeks, because we saw the Bavli had this trend of, where Eretz Yisrael texts include women, and then the Bavli was exempting women. See, in this sugya we see, at least in this case, there was definitely awareness of the Eretz Yisrael approach. And, this sugya shows how it's really in a dialogue with it, a self-awareness of the perhaps limits of its own approach, and allowances, to varying extents of incorporating the Eretz Yisrael approach as well. So, yeah. Anyone has any questions? No. Please let me know. No.
Feel free to unmute or raise your hand or type something into the chat really quickly.
Oh, was my screen not shared this whole time?
No, it was shared, and
Okay.
I took it down as we were at the
Sorry,
end,
yes,
so we could see each other.
Yeah, sorry. Share it. I want to make sure you can all see that. That's what I say.
Christine, if I may, can you hear me?
Yes.
Thinking last week and then this week, and I had a baby in September, and I was just thinking about the women's exemption and kind of the emotional feel of women's exemption. And on the one hand, the rationale that women are exempt from it because you can't obligate someone in something that is life-threatening, as we discussed, that really makes sense. And as I shared last week, I had a medically complicated pregnancy. But then also kind of thinking about the general kind of halachic framework that the one who is obligated and does something is greater than the one who is exempt and chooses to do it. And feeling there's a part of me that really wants my choice and my struggle to be honored by the halachic system. And so it sort of feels like a double-edged sword that women are exempt, in that I wouldn't want to be compelled to do something that was of personal, danger. But on the other hand, feeling I want, I guess, what I went through to be taken seriously by the halachic system in a way that being commanded to or being obligated kind of gives it that sort of kavod. So just wanted to sort of share that.
Thank you. First of all, thank you so much for sharing that. And I think you really beautifully articulated. Yeah, it's two sides to it. I think I already shared this, but I when on the Sukkot, I'm sitting in the Sukkot with my it's why would you do that? You don't need to. Why are you making your life harder? There was no room. There's plenty of room. Sitting But like when it's something you value, and to say that someone isn't a part of it, that says something. And I think, you just expressed it so well. There are different ways to view it. So maybe Huji just saying, no, yeah, it's great. She can drink a sterilizing potion if she wants. It gives her reproductive freedom. On the other hand, but then are women just instruments to a man's obligation? And I do want to stress, I think just going in terms of whether people have a choice, having children or not, it's important that the Mishnah says, Lo yivatel adam mipir v'rebe el yishlo ben avad. It doesn't mean they have to be having children every second of their life. It could just, at some point in your life, you can't stop trying to have children. And what does that mean? So Moshe says it's, having marital relations. But yeah, I think you expressed the two sides of this. It's really, yeah. So thank you so much for sharing that. And I think there are just two ways to look at it. But yeah, I think you said that really well. So thank you.
You teach so thoroughly, and you draw so many sources and make connections that are very complex, and yet you make them so gracefully that
you're so kind.
We can really absorb, and at any level of our studies, whether we're beginning, whether, you make it so accessible on everybody's level. So
that's very
you have
kind.
such a gift. So
thank you.
You really do.
I really appreciate it, and I enjoy this so much. And as I said, this is my current research, and I'm writing a book. So any feedback, I really love to hear. I think it can be organized better. How many classes do we have left, Noah?
2. We have 2 more weeks. And I'm very excited for next week already, and also for the following week, because this has been fascinating. And thank you, as always, for just a tremendous class, and everyone for your participation. It really, it's really a learning community because you contribute, and
what you should.
Yes, just one short plug before we bid adieu for the week on this one. If you would like some more Talmud-related programming, tomorrow at 1 p.m. Eastern, Rabbi Silber will be starting a new class, which I'm very excited about. He has a sort of genre of classes that I would call character studies. So this is going to be a class on Elijah of the Talmud, looking at the character of Eliyahu Hanavi and who he becomes when Chazal get their hands on him. So I encourage you to join if you wish. And again, thank you so much. If there are any additional questions, comments, etc., I won't close.
Can I ask? Thanks, Noah. You're always very you have so much spirit. And I wanted to ask you, Dr. Schick, where would you say you studied that gave you the most ability to analyze text the way you do? Or who did you, just trying to assemble a list of where the best are.
I studied, I'm from New Jersey. So high school. So we had, the Gemara there is very limited.
Yeah.
But I really say the person who really taught me how to learn Gemara is Rabbi Moshe Khan. Rabbi Moshe Khan. He actually taught in Adrisha for many years.
Really?
Yeah, he's at Stern College.
Oh, it's Stern. And is that in New York? Where is Stern?
It's in New York, yeah.
Yeah.
It's Women's College at Yeshiva University. And he teaches Gemara there, both when I was in Stern College, and I studied afterwards in the graduate program in Advanced Talmud there. It's called a GPATS.
Oh, okay. So it's through Stern, and particularly
it's Stern, yeah. And particularly Rabbi Moshe Khan, who is a really wonderful human being, a big Talmid Chacham, and an educator, just a wonderful educator.
Oh, thank you.
So,
okay.
I'm very grateful to him, and my doctoral advisor, Yaakov Elman, the late Yaakov Elman. as well.
Oh, Yaakov Elman. I don't know
He
these
passed
people.
away. He passed away a few years ago.
Oh my, is that Stern? That's like Stern was Stern Women's College, or that's a separate Stern?
No, yeah, that is Stern Women's College.
Oh, okay. I had a student who graduated from Stern, not in Jewish studies, but yeah. Oh, okay.
Yeah, they have, they have.
Uh-huh.
So that's the Women's College of Yeshiva University.
That's wonderful.
But I know also, like after went to Israel for the year, and I wanted to study Gemara. So one summer I took a Gemara, and it took me a whole summer to go through one daf. And I used a dictionary, and I did it and went over and over it again until it made sense. And that actually was really invaluable. And just being precise and learning and putting the work in.
Yeah.
You could, as I would say, I've heard this a lot. Yeah, in English, and sorry for those who've heard this already, but in English translation, I mean, it's fine, but you're not going to be able to, it's a crutch. You won't be able to learn on your own without it. And, working through it, breaking your teeth. And even if it took me back then, sleepaway camp was 8 weeks. I was a counselor.
Yeah.
I didn't do much as a counselor, clearly, because I was learning. But I was the CIT's counselor, so I didn't have to do it.
Oh.
But I really, those 8 weeks just going over one Amud.
One Amud. Do you remember which Amud you did?
It was,
How you picked it, chose it.
Well, it was a Gemara and a Bracho, and a friend of mine had learned it that year, so she worked with me a little bit. But just doing it and
getting the hang of
and
it,
working on it, and looking up every word, and it's not just a word; it's also making sure you understand the logic, because the Gemara has its own logic, and it's a lot. One word has a lot more meaning than that one word. It's written in a code, as I also like to say a lot. So coding it, understanding. So but I didn't have it when I was growing up. It was in the school I went to. It wasn't an option, but I think with putting the time and the effort, anyone can do it.
It's amazing how much time it takes, but it's
good.
Thank you.
Thank you all so much. It's really a pleasure. And there's so many other topics I want to do, but I think we'll go to women and Talmud study. we can not do that. And Torah study. So I think that will be what we do next week. And again, the differing views of Bavli and Eretz Yisrael. And agadot about it too. We can do that in one class. We'll see. Because there's another great procreation school. Embryology. So
oh, geez,
That's a very cool one. So hopefully we can get it all done.
I know Talmudology.
That's a 2002. Wow. So I see someone else went to Maria also. So anyways, thank you all. It's always really such a joy and a pleasure. And I look forward to this Wednesday for night. Wednesday night, I gotta go to sleep now.
No, that's right. Right. Take care.
Thank you, everyone.
You're always so kind, really. I appreciate it.
Thank you.